Good morning, everyone. I'm sure by now you will all understand that HS2 Limited is a public body and therefore is governed by the rules of PERDA. This means I shall try and be at least a little bit interesting without saying too much. What it means, perhaps being a little bit serious for a moment, is you can't predict the future, and you can't speculate on the future. And I certainly can't speculate when we come to the Q&A on potential future government decisions. But having put in the sort of start of a 10, here we go. Because this is meant to be a keynote, I want to just rehearse again a little bit more about why and what we're doing. Some of you will find it's quite familiar, but nevertheless, I must have met around 100,000 people in the last 8 years through public consultation. I'm going to talk a little bit about public consultation later. I find it fascinating, depending whether I'm talking in the railway industry or the construction industry. Everybody looks at HS2 through their particular lens. I suspect in here, where as you walk around the exhibits, there's a fascinating number of small firms, all with quite ingenious and innovative products, which are all very interesting to High Speed 2. My starting point is it's not about the train. The train is just a means to the end, the railway is just a means to the end, and the cross-government and cross-party support for High Speed 2 is anchored in the things that you see here. It is anchored in being the means by which people travel between our rapidly growing metropolises for the next 150 years. It's anchored in a new generation of skills in railway construction, in civil engineering, in railway systems, and then in operation. It's anchored in bringing people closer together at an affordable price. Someone once said to me, so who exactly uses High Speed 2? We come back to, is it about business? Well, yes, it is about business. Is it about leisure? Yes. Is it about young people visiting other young people? You know, get off your computer, get and speak to people, making it easier for people to meet, of all ages, all descriptions. But when we talk about our customer experience, not a phrase I particularly love, let's say we, the people that will use it, one of the areas of challenge has been we want this to be used by everybody and not just the people that find railways easy to use today. So when we start talking to potential suppliers about new and innovative products, we're not necessarily measuring against hard numbers. We're measuring against feelings like, will it make rail travel on High Speed 2 easier? Will it make it more inclusive? Inclusive means if I have got mobility impairment, if I am a wheelchair user, why the hell should I have to ring up beforehand to get special assistance? I want to use in the 21st century a mode of transport just as easily as a 19-year-old able-bodied student. I could go on about that for the next 20 minutes because I'm quite passionate about that. My Director of Environment just keeps reminding me this is actually an environmental project with trains. One of the reasons HS2 has got the capital headline cost is it is consulted, it has been through Parliament, it is the most environmentally sensitive transport infrastructure project in the world. We used to say that about High Speed 1, which set new standards. But High Speed 1 is now in the design 20 years ago. We've taken the baton on from High Speed 1 in terms of environmental standards, just as we are now taking the baton on from Crossrail in terms of things like tunnelling and skills, and the new high-speed 2 skills colleges, one of which is in Birmingham and one of which is due to open shortly in Doncaster. Anyway, more than just the train. To some degree, a lot of the work we're doing now within the powers that we have is about our 4 stations. I'm not doing very well with this, excuse me. I'm going to go back a one. Our 4 stations. And each of them is where the station's the most difficult part of this project, because stations are where you affect the way cities live and work. So of course they're technically challenging, just like the route is technically challenging, just like the trains are technically challenging. But everybody has got a stake in a station. Not just the users, not just the people around it, but the effect it has on the city itself. Birmingham, Curzon Street, you will now see surrounding it the number of tower cranes like you were in London. You are seeing firms moving lock, stock and barrel from London to a much nicer place to live in the surrounds of our second city. We are having a transformative effect 10 years before we open, or nearly 10 years before we open. The plans for interchange, we have a railway plan, but you will see in the press some of the ideas that come from the local authorities, Solihull, from the nearby airport, from this establishment, about saying, look, this becomes, where you're standing now, the best connected place in Britain. With the second phase of High Speed 2, less than an hour from 80% of the population of the country. Will it look like that in 30 years' time? We don't know, but we know others have got plans. We will create the railway. It will be a catalyst for growth. And in London, whether it be the new development partnership in Old Oak Common, or the master plan for the whole Euston area, of which our station is the anchor, is fundamental to those strategic objectives I talked about a moment ago. Okay, they're down here. Where are we with, I should say, where are we with that? Well, you know we have a bill. You see early works contracts now happening, utility diversions happening, land purchase happening. Actually, the very first contract we let was to grow 7 million trees. Because whilst we can fast track a lot of things, we haven't worked out how to do that any quicker. And we haven't got a special line of God. So, growing trees that we'll need in 10 years' time. Doing the utility diversions, buying the land to move flora and fauna off the route, the compensatory land, buying land to grow the trees, is all things you have to do before you get the diggers out. And explaining that to our construction team when they rocked up was quite a moment of revelation. Phase 2, the yellow bits, well, the blue and the yellow bits, I suspect everybody here understands 2A, to extend on to Crewe, is well advanced in its preparation to submit a bill when and if the new government authorises that after the election at some point. And phase 2B, the yellow bits, goldy bits, the consultation on the 30% of the route that's wasn't confirmed after the first consultation, primarily the new route proposed past through South Yorkshire, but there are some other significant changes too. That 30% went out to public consultation earlier in the year, closed. We are working through the consultation responses with a view to giving advice to ministers later in the year. The headline of opening times has not changed, is not affected by unexpected general elections. 2033, finish date for the whole lot. And the headline cost hasn't changed either, and won't. I keep saying it's not about the trains, but it's a bit difficult standing in the shadow of some of the stands here not to say something. We've started the process of tendering for the trains for phase 1, some 9 years before they will be in passenger use, some 7.5 years before they are in shakedown, testing, commissioning. The pre-qualification packs have gone out. There's been quite a lot in the media about that. We have set, just as we have for the infrastructure, a pretty demanding specification, because we're buying a train for 10 years' time that will be in service in 30 years' time, and we live in a fast-changing world. So our specification, as those of you in the audience who are more versed in this than I am will know, is quite challenging, both in terms of the performance of the trains as, I was going to say as lumps of mechanical engineering, but they're not really, they're software on wheels. But also the passenger environment, including that old bugbear of mine, Wi-Fi is actually a basic human right, not an add-on. But we look forward to the responses we get to that, and of course that forms a big part of the country's industrial strategy for where the skills and the suppliers, not just of the big metal bits, but the real value of the skin, where those suppliers come from, which is again is why I'm delighted, despite Purda, to be standing here in this environment. I want to talk a little bit for a moment about innovation. We've designed and specified this railway on the basis of what I saw as the latest available technology. Not we're going to be caught going through the whole parliamentary process with a business case based on stuff that didn't exist. Yes, we've taken some challenges on how we integrate new techniques and technologies, and one of them, which is totally misnamed as building information management, virtual design, virtual construction. This picture, I know it's a cartoon, but it kind of works for us. We started with, how do you build a new railway if you don't do things differently? Well, you do it the same old way. You've got paper, you've got people not quite understanding what they're doing. It's a lovely way of doing things. It's the way we've always done it, which is why we drew a little picture of the devil, because the devil always plays the best tune. But actually we said, no, we need to upskill the entire supply chain to be able to design the railway virtually. Well, Crossrail's done that pretty well. Construct it virtually. But this is where we're pushing the bounds to be able to simulate operation virtually and maintenance virtually before we settle on the design. Until we've got in our core version of the truth, computer system if you like it, the maintenance regime for High Speed 2, the renewal regime for High Speed 2, and the operational processes of High Speed 2, we will not go nap on the system design and some aspects of even the civils design. Now, we're a long way on with that, which is why we can progress the civils design. But until we have an evidence base, we move slowly. I've seen too many projects which are rushed design and just to get out there and cut ribbons and start digging. We're taking a little bit of time on this. we will be designing with our main works civil suppliers for the next 2 years. There will be some early works, but we're going to get the design right before we go near the ground. This is, I said, I saw a whole life in our model. The whole life has worked in Parliament because we haven't produced different products for Parliament. We have taken from our BIM base the emerging virtual railway, and that's what we've used in Parliament to explain and evidence the effects, whether it be on a macro scale like carbon or on a micro scale like what exactly is the noise going past number 47 Acacia Avenue somewhere in the middle of the Midlands. What will be the visual effect? Well, we could spend a fortune mocking that up. We don't mock it up, we take it straight out of this system. And when we go out, as some of us have done, and stand with members of the community, cue slide of pictures of members of the community, in some of the 17 public consultations we have done, I do get asked occasionally, how come since we started the Chinese have built over 14,000 miles of high-speed railway? I don't think there's any word in Chinese for public consultation. The point here is, yes, we can revert to maps, but actually nobody at school gets taught maps anymore. Therefore, the ability to create a virtual world which is tailored to the individual is a different way of consultation to any other consultation there has been in this country up to HS2. Even the Heathrow stuff was basically two-dimensional. We are working in a three-dimensional environment, and if you include noise, you could say four-dimensional. Yeah, public consultation. It's not about the train much. But I will finish, because otherwise I'll talk for hours. I always do. The bit that says the other sort of, oh, this is a fast train from London to Birmingham. Yeah, you're bloody right, it is. It's also a fast train and new capacity to all these other places. It's a fundamental part of HS2 that it integrates with the other transport systems of this country. Yes, with the mainline railway, but also with urban transport and suburban transport, whatever the mode, that it integrates with growth plans for regions and cities. Those are the dimensions that don't tend to get talked about too much. But underneath it all, the railway is there to support all those ambitions. It's great fun, and those of you who are involved with it, those of you who will be involved here as key suppliers, and every supplier is a key supplier because every little bit of this system has to work. I hope you'll get a lot of fun out of changing the way Britain is. Thank you very much. I'll now take some questions. Okay?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, we do have time for some questions. We have a roving microphone somewhere. So if anybody does have a question to ask, please show a hand and we'll get the microphone to you. In the meantime, while we're getting the microphone down here,
Yep.
the Curzon Street.
Yes, sir.
You've still got the old block of the old 1840s station there. How
Yes.
integrated is that going to be in the new station design? Or is it just to one side?
It's not on the footprint of the actual platforms. It's immediately to the side. But the plan is, there are a number of plans for it which will compete. One is that it becomes very much a welcome to Birmingham showpiece centre, which kind of tries to link, and anybody who works in the heritage world will just laugh at me. It tries to link the whole industrial heritage of Birmingham to the future of Birmingham. So there's something here about it being what the Millennium Dome never was. But it is the world's oldest still standing station. So we were never going to do a Euston Arch on it. And we're never going to ignore it. So the challenge, the remit to the architects is a 21st century railway and incorporate the 1840 station next to it. The moment it's boarded up, it's not used, it'll be fabulous.
Good, glad to hear it. David.
David Brigginshaw, Jay. You said the headline cost hasn't changed and won't change. Can you just confirm what that cost is? Because there's a constant stream in the national press about the costs rocketing and going up and, you know, doubling or whatever.
Well, I find you should never trust journalists. So we're still at the 55 billion, which, I mean, whether you see it changing little by little, that's just inflation. That's why I say the headline cost, the phase one spending envelope, 22 point whatever it is billion, the phase two envelope, 22.6, the trains envelope, 7, and I'm not going to the nearest point because it's big of doing that standing on your feet. What you see from us has not changed. The deal with the Treasury is you build it for that, and we're building it for that. Which is why, again, those of you in the supply sector who are here, we do talk about building to cost, as well as building to time, as well as building to quality. The quality is not an available area to go to save money. The time is not, and the schedule and the cost is not. We just don't, it's too easy to go, oh, we'll fix that bit and the rest of it will be what it will be. We shouldn't be like that. We've looked at recent NAO reports into other railway projects. We've not done that out of a sense of schadenfreude, we've done that to learn the damn lessons. We will design it to cost, to time and to quality. There is no alternative. And no, I never did have a picture of a certain lady on my bedroom wall.
Thank you, David. And any other questions? One right at the back, man, there.
Yes, but I noticed Clive. No, back.
Hi. Since we're so close to Birmingham, what options are you considering for integration with or quick access to New Street, or at least the major lines that feed into New Street? How's that going to integrate? It's quite a long walk at the moment.
Yes, that's quite a reasonable and regular question, and it always has been since the City Authority chose Curzon Street as its preferred site for our new station. You'll see the plans now well advanced that bring the tram underneath our station and then back down into Digbeth. So that is connecting up the current city area with the station. The reconfiguration of that whole area, public transport, for taxis, for private transport, is designed as the city centre kind of drifts and expands eastwards towards what, I mean, the development is effectively Birmingham Eastfield. You are seeing a city region of which the major stations of New Street, North Street, Curzon Street and Snow Hill are, around. I know there are still discussions, and it is led by the city authorities, it's their city, about the different ways of connecting Curzon Street. Well, with Moore Street's easy because we're co-terminus, and Moore Street, of course, is expanding. The tram is the connection with the most obvious connection with Snow Hill, which is also thriving. And then the best way of closing the perceived gap between the New Street and the new Curzon Street is again evolving. We will create the railway infrastructure, the city creates the way it wants the city to work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Do we have a Clive?
Andrew, is the HS2 infrastructure for the exclusive use of HS2 train services, or will there be available paths that other train companies, providing they've got the right equipment on the train, are able to use?
The decisions on the commercial franchising and access are future decisions, and they're not for HS2, they're for the government and the department. What I can say is the only trains that will use High Speed 2's core will be High Speed 2 specification trains. As you know more than most people, Clive, we set out, and it's a core requirement, that we can accommodate up to 18 trains an hour. There is a home for all 18 trains as Britain expands. In fact, if you read some of the press, you total up the number of promissory notes and it adds up to more than 18. All 18 paths are sellable. The decision on how that is operated is for the future. You've seen the government decision to have the West Coast Partnership franchise that will work with government and with us to look at what is the best way of doing it. There are a number of parameters: value for money to the taxpayer, it's got to work for passengers, it's got to work for the cities that are expecting the train services, which are the whole basis for this scheme. But how you parcel that up there are some interesting debates, because frankly, if it was a single franchise, it's a very big one. And how does that integrate with future West Coast franchises, future East Coast franchises? Will we have franchises? I'm now off territory. All I can say is we're not one of those new lines that have been opened where you then see 4 or 5 trains an hour, and what the hell do we do with the spare capacity? We can use every train path to the benefit of the cities that we serve, and how that is sorted, I'm sure will be resolved in the next 3 or 4 years. That was a bit of a non-answer because I don't know.
Thank you. And Andrew, the trains you're buying, Andrew,
Yeah.
you're buying, well, the plan was to buy dedicated trains that were the gauge for HS2, and also to buy trains that could run on the conventional network and go off the end of HS2.
Yeah.
Is the first tranche of trains all able to run on the conventional network?
Yes, in basically market testing with potential suppliers, we looked at the benefits of having 2 train fleets, and some of it is the benefit of being able to showcase a full European gauge train on a simpler train in many respects between London and Birmingham. But we've got the design costs of the classic or the conventional compatible trains, and on fairly hard-nosed numbers. Way back in 2009, we were going, is it worth having 2 fleets for the first few years? Don't know. There's some quality things which say it'd be lovely to be able to showcase, but the numbers say buy a single fleet, commission 1 fleet, and it's not as if any of that becomes redundant, because in the next phase you need more of those anyway. So our core proposal or option at the moment is phase 1 single fleet, all classic or conventional compatible, and phase 2 when we've got dedicated services between London and Birmingham, Birmingham and Manchester, Birmingham and Leeds, London and Leeds. That is a big fleet in itself. So that's really when it's justifiable to have two fleets.